Why would Vaush of all people be opposed to calling people orcs when he says it all the time? When do I call Russians orcs? Hogs? Sometimes I've called conservatives hogs.
Vaush blessed us with another discourse about why you shouldn't call Russians orcs. Russian soldiers in particular. It all went down from there, you know. He went off, as you would say, I suppose.
Yeah, a lot of people, I think, especially in the West. Which NATO countries have been attacked? Where is all the conflict in the NATO countries? Which ones? None of these talking points are true. No, there's no evidence ever. There's been zero evidence presented that the United States had anything to do with Euromaidan. And everybody's pissed off about this. Like, all of this is out in the open. Everybody's mad about it. There were protests for so long over this. The idea that the US instigated this is fantasy.
Guys, don't defend the orc thing. Come on. It's definitely not a race thing, though. It's a behavior thing about Russian soldiers. Then use any one of the billion terms that you can use to refer to people who do war crimes, rather than orc, a term which is like literally you're a different race. I'm not defending it, but why would Vaush of all people be a...
Is there like an actual, is there like some racial background for orcs? Does it mean something different in Ukrainian, or? It's a World of Warcraft thing. Because I feel like, does it make sense for Ukrainians to attack Russians based on race? Or don't we have like a ton of overlap here, especially in Eastern Ukraine? I thought it was them calling them the F slur, but they changed it. Hey, Destiny, serious question. Do you think all the harsh criticisms of Biden from the likes of Vaush and Hassan sound like threats that if he doesn't do what they want, Trump will win? I don't know. I think it's just catering to the audience. But I don't think Vaush normally attacks Biden. I think Vaush is pretty big on like the vote for Biden thing. I don't think Vaush is in the same camp at all when it comes to attacking Biden. Hassan is way off on his own. He's an insane person there when it comes to that. White people do be racially segregating each other in Europe. I'm not just saying even just white. I'm pretty sure there's like a lot of people that live in Eastern Ukraine that have like family that is Ukrainian and Russian. There's a lot of racial overlap there. They're not like, I don't know, I think two other ethnic groups that live near each other. I don't know. I could be wrong on that. That was my impression. I don't think I'm wrong on that.
I'm not defending it, but why would Vaush of all people be opposed to calling people orcs when he says it all the time? When do I call Russians orcs? Hogs? Sometimes I've called conservatives hogs. That's not literally like they're not people. It's a...
Why, bro, come on. Why, just because we call somebody like an animal or say something like, oh my God, this guy's such a fucking dog. These guys are pigs. Wait, this is like dehumanizing language? Is like every insult not okay? Does it matter that much? Call somebody an orc? You're an ape, you dumb fuck.
A reuse or a recontextualization of centuries-old class dynamicism. When you call the bourgeoisie pigs, you're not literally like dehumanizing them. That's not how the rhetoric is employed. It's just like an animalization, or what is it? It's obviously not the same. I don't know about that one, Chief. I mean, I don't need to argue with you. I have the like incredible power of just banning people. If you really think that like Azov jerking off Twitter accounts calling every Russian an orc is the same as like saying cops are pigs or the bourgeoisie are pigs, you can just like leave the chat. I don't even care. Guys, don't.
I feel like if like Ukrainians were like trying to run through like Russian cities, killing Russians, and they were calling them like, we need to get all these orcs, and you're talking like killing Russian civilians, I feel like maybe, but I don't know. It feels really weird. I don't want to use the privilege meme, but it feels really weird in the West that when we are talking about other nations that are having like existential wars, and we're like, when you use this language against the country, the one that just glide bombed a giant fucking shopping mall and killed like 50 spies, please make sure that you're not ableist, that you're not using dehumanizing language, and that you should never attack somebody on like things of nationality. Like, it just feels like incredibly fucking cringe. Like, I think you could shove coal in my asshole and I can make diamonds out of it, listening to somebody like woke scold somebody on the insults that they use for the soldiers of a country that's trying to basically destroy their sovereign territory. But although I don't think, I mean, obviously engaging in like dehumanization of the enemy and everything is not good. We should probably cut that a bit, but it's so hard to find criticisms of Ukraine that aren't just like Russian marching orders, or it feels like there's so much overlap. I don't know if like the things come directly from the Kremlin, or if people like Greenwald get emails forwarded to them from, you know, Petrov or whoever the fuck their handler is in fucking Moscow. But yeah, like all the talking points are always the same. Azov, Nazis, orcs, they're dehumanizing them. all these innocent Ukrainians are being forced to die for the West. It's like always like the exact same talking points over and over and over and over and over again. If you change on this, I feel like on this orc term specifically, it used to be kind of against people using the term to describe Russians. Well, because I thought at one point, I heard that last time I asked, I thought orc was supposed to be like a shorthand for like the F slur or something. I was like, oh, it's probably not a good thing. But I don't actually know. I'm not entirely sure. Is RFK Jr.'s take on Ukraine versus Russia accurate? 2330 on a Sean Ryan interview.
And BlackRock has the contracts to destroy Ukraine, and it has the contract to rebuild Ukraine.
Oh, wow. Oh, my God. Holy shit. Oh, man. Military-industrial complex. It's all the military stuff we do is for military-industrial complex. Okay. Off to a strong start. Okay.
So, and it's one of the biggest donors to the Republican and Democratic Party. And the Ukraine war is really about the expansion of NATO. We wanted to put NATO and President Putin and every president before him, biggest donors to the Republican and Democratic Party. And the Ukraine war is really about the expansion of NATO.
Why did the Ukraine war start? You know that there's history, time moves in one direction. There are things that happen. There are events that occur in time, in space. Like in 2014, Crimea wasn't taken over because of anything to do with NATO. 2023, or 2022? When the fuck? How many years ago was this now? The invasion didn't happen because of NATO. This is just not. It just doesn't happen. These are just Russian talking points.
We wanted to put NATO and President Putin and every president before him have said that's a red line. You can't put NATO in Ukraine. The Russians have been...
But NATO wasn't going into Ukraine. NATO was not... There's been a civil war for like 10 years now in the Donbass. You can't join NATO. They would have to get the approval of every country. It wasn't happening.
Invaded 3 times through Ukraine. Last time, Hitler killed 1 out of every 7 Russians. Oh, we've never experienced an invasion like that. Russians haven't. Everybody remembers it. And they don't want a foreign enemy army in Ukraine, and particularly...
What do you think NATO is going to invade Russia? It's such a bot talking point. It's such a Can somebody give me the meme comment? Give me the comic. Where's the one where it's like, did I tweet this out? There's like a 6-panel like Poland ball comic that just explains this point perfectly. And it's like, like Russia's like, I don't want anybody joining NATO on my borders. They're like, oh, well, we want to join NATO. It's like, oh, you're not. Like, well, why can't we? And whatever. Does anybody know what I'm talking about? You retweeted it? Yes, please. NATO keeps expanding in our neighborhood. Oh no, they're attacking and annexing countries into NATO? No, the countries are asking to join NATO themselves. But why would those countries want to join NATO? There's not even a Poland ball meme. Like, it's such a brain dead talk. Here's a question. I'm sorry. Can somebody give me a single show, okay, where one of these spineless, cowardly gets some pushback on this retarded talking point? Just one show where I can see somebody engage past level -5 on this stupid talking point. There's already NATO countries on Russia's border, okay? There's already 3 NATO countries on Russia's border. Number 1. Number 2, NATO has never attacked Russia, and they have no plans to, so why the matter? Number 3, why should Russia get to dictate to other countries what military alliances they're allowed to join? I want an answer to any of these questions. Any of them. Like, I want to see somebody actually confronted with any of it, because it's such a brain-dead talking point. Oh, sorry, 4 now, because Finland joined.
And they don't want a foreign enemy army in Ukraine, and particularly, they don't want an army with nuclear weapons. And, we have put on nuclear-ready systems, these Aegis missile systems that Lockheed makes in Romania and Poland, so we made...
Hold on. When he says nuclear-ready system, does he just mean, like, the ability to shoot, like, big missiles? Or... Do we have nuclear weapons staged in? Source me this if this is true, okay? Somebody shoot me an article on this if this is true.
Those NATO countries. Why do we want to go into NATO? Here's one of the reasons. Why do we want every country in Europe? We promised in 1992 when Gorbachev said,
Oh, and it's the stupid talking point. We said not 1 inch eastward.
I'm going to remove the walls in Europe. I'm going to allow you, the West, to reunite Germany under NATO, and I'm going to move out 450,000 Soviet troops from Germany, from East Germany, and I'm going to allow you to march NATO soldiers into their barracks. Okay, he could never go back to Russia after that. He went back, but he was despised. Nobody went to.
Is that hold on? I thought part of the agreement for the reunification of Germany was that East Germany couldn't be militarized. Is that not true? I don't know enough about the. Is Russia even giving NATO expansion as a justification? I think they might have after the war. They might have started to, but there's not. It's just not.
Good news
Yeah, what's that?
for all of us, I suppose.
Yeah, I might pick up more Ukraine stuff coming up soon. We're watching this RFK thing. I don't know why people think this RFK guy is smart. It's like, I just hate everything. I just don't like politics at all anymore. I don't like anything. And the NATO expansion talking point, the fact that people, whatever bad thing you're about to say about him, yes, and probably 10 times more. It's the NATO expansion talking point for why Russia had to go to war with Ukraine. It's just the most retarded thing. In the fucking world. Yeah. It's like a guy's going to a store to buy a bulletproof vest, and then his neighbor shoots him, and everybody's like, "Why the f you shoot that guy?" He's like, "Well, I didn't like that he was going to the store to buy a bulletproof vest." It's just the most ass. I asked my chat. I asked my chat if they had like a single. I just want a single interview where any of these like spineless, cowardly, subhuman, knuckle dragging are ever confronted on this point. Like somebody needs to ask, like, okay, well, why would it be bad for them to join NATO? Like one question. Like I just want to hear the answer to that, because every time they talk about it, it's always like, oh well, like Putin is really worried that he would develop like erectile dysfunction, I guess.
Yeah, Putin is really worried.
Yeah, and it's like it's such an unbelievable way to undermine. And then in the next breath, they'll talk about things like, oh, like the war needs to stop because we care so much about Ukrainian lives. It's like, why do you give a them dying in a war, but not enough for them to like join a military alliance or whatever? Like, yeah, it's just like the stupid. It's so fucking stupid. Yeah, I don't know.
What you just said is the only thing that unironically triggers me at this point.
Yeah.
So I'm very used to many stupid things, But this, like when they pretend to care about Ukrainian lives, and when they say this, I'm losing it. I'm like, every time my eye starts twitching.
Yeah, like it is like the most.
So condescending, so annoying, and so false. It's just unbelievably awful. Like this particular thing I cannot deal with, honestly. It's just wait, well, is that RFK dude? Isn't he the one who had like a worm who starved in his brain and died?
Basically, yeah.
Poor worm, dude. Nothing to eat, apparently.
Apparently not.
Yeah, suffered horrible starvation, literally like Holodomor kind of thing.
Basically,
so
yeah.
I'm like, I'm very like, I don't know, I feel bad for the worm. Also, I spent almost the entire day fighting with the retards on Twitter. So I'm hardly better than all of you, I suppose, at this point.
Sometimes that's life,
Vaush blessed us with another discourse about why you shouldn't call Russians orcs, Russian soldiers in particular, by the way, orcs, and it all went down from there. He went off, as you would say, I suppose.
Yeah, a lot of people, I think, especially in the West, is that like because we don't see conventional wars. Well, I'm trying to think actually.
Not much.
Well, I'm trying to think. Prior, like aside from like Yugoslavia, like all of the wars are very far away and kind of detached. So like in the United States,
I mean, technically Yugoslavia is basically the exact same distance, but you participated in it in the sense that NATO participated in it, and we bombed Serbia in particular,
Yeah. What I mean is that like America isn't close to Afghanistan. America wasn't close to Iraq. We're not close to Syria. Like it's all like really far away.
Yeah.
So anytime there are like two neighboring countries that are fighting with each other, and especially when those fights are like existential, in the West, we like very quickly start to associate all rhetoric with like genocide and like racism. Like that's what we think. It's like, oh wait, well why would you say like bad things about like citizens of this country? Like that's like very problematic, or like things like that. And it's like, okay, maybe but like bro, it's like a total it's like come on, like Jesus Christ. Yeah.
I literally just posted a thing about another beheaded soldier, another one.
Yeah.
So I don't give a shit what people call them. Orcs is like the nicest way you can call them. And also, it's the leftists in the West that explained to me that apparently orcs in Lord of the Rings is somehow racial. Like, I am a big fan of Lord of the Rings. I read the books. I watched the movies like 10 times. And I never, ever looked at orcs and thought of any particular race. I never thought
everything,
of, like,
every single
real-life
thing,
people at all.
yeah, every single thing became like racist and all the fantasy stuff. So
And
I thought,
I'm like, actually, Lonerbox explained it to me. Like, first time he said, like, this is like a racial thing, and I'm like, how? Like, the only reason people say this, like, is because obviously, like, orcs were like killing people. They're extremely violent. They were destroying like all the beautiful cities, attacking people ruthlessly with no like sense or purpose, just a destructive force. That's what people mean. They but it's so curious. I asked my friends, actually, like most of people I know, like, have you ever considered what race orcs were? And they were like, orc?
yeah, it's
Orc
dumb.
in a
It's dumb.
fictional world? And I'm like, yeah, I think so too. Like, but yeah, Lonerbox explained it to me back in the day, and I was like, wow, like, is it like me, or is it actually racist to see ugly as shit orcs and think, Mongolians? No?
Yeah, I think they were doing this in
like,
D&D too, where just anytime you talk about like other races, I think people are trying to get rid of a lot of that because they feel it's weird or something. But yeah, I don't know. It's dumb. It's dumb.
Yeah, that's pretty fucking. It's pretty fucking Western. But but Vaush went off this time around. He also like started arguing with his own chat, and they were like, "Dude, you're like literally calling cops pigs and like conservative demons,
True.
reptiles."
True.
And what's the fucking difference then? If you can dehumanize those people, then what's the difference here? Like, you're not the one who should be making this argument. He got ballistic on his own chat, obviously, and basically made up with the best thing ever, I suppose. I never heard anything more great than this. Mental gymnastics, I think you people call it, he said that this is not dehumanization, this is animification or animalization. Animalization.
I've never even heard that word before, but yeah.
Yeah. So basically, it's like he's calling him like animals, so it's not the same thing. And I was like, yeah, sure. So when Nazis were calling Jews rats or vermin, they were also not dehumanizing them. They were just, animalizing them, I suppose.
Yeah.
It's just, next level shit. And then he went off about calling Ukrainians obviously Nazis, and that we are fighting for our nationalists are fighting, want this to become an ethnic conflict, which literally I never heard from the most far right people or I ever talked to in Ukraine that I personally don't like, obviously, because they're not my type of person. But even they never actually ever said that they are like the glorious godly army that is fighting in the for ethnic supremacy of Ukraine. Anyone who ever been in Ukraine or talked with Ukrainians, like people like Dylan who actually know, they would explain it that they never heard anything like that. This is not even in lexicon.
Yeah, it's not. Yeah, it's just
verbiage.
Yeah, it's just stupid.
It's something Russians say. They call themselves like the glorious army of God and the Russian supremacy. They're like the superior Slavs that have the divine right to rule over other people, like this type of fascist shit. Like Serbs did it. They literally call themselves heavenly army, But to Vaush every nationalist movement is the same. So he never bothered to figure out that, people just don't do this. They don't use this language even. Yeah, anyhow. Then he went up and said that we are all sweaty, bolden Slavs and all look the same to him. So I don't know. Yeah, whatever.
Yep. All right. I'm going to keep churning through this debate. Thanks for stopping by.
Yeah. Sorry, Vaush complained.
No, you're good.
Vaush complaining. Yeah, anyhow, have a nice day as per usual. And I'm glad you were not jihaded.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
Have fun. Be careful.
Bye-bye.
I found this for $200 on eBay. They only had it was either large, small, or extra, extra large. Those are the only sizes for this. I think you can make oversized jackets can be like a fit. If it was too small, it would have been horrible. I need to find like a good hat, I think. And then probably, I have aviators, but they're blue. I think I would need black ones. Actually, let me check. Let's see how it looks. Well, maybe because blue. Maybe I don't know. Let's check. Hold on. I need a hat though. Absolutely, we absolutely need a hat. I need the most. I need like a Moderna cap. Do you think Moderna makes hats? God, this fit's gonna go so hard on my next fucking conservative debate. I'm thinking. I don't know if I wear. Probably not boots with this. Probably the white sneakers. Oh, yes. Yeah. I am boosted 15 times. How could you tell? I would have to go up on stage, and if they make me take my if they make me take the jacket off, I'll like take this off like 10 band-aids on my my arm all falling off. God, yes. Wear a smaller jacket underneath it. That's another Pfizer jacket. Oh, bro. What is this? Oh, shit. I'm sorry. You guys can't even see. I have to... Okay. Sorry. We made it 30 seconds into here, and then I spurged out over this guy. Where were we?
To his funeral. And but he did it because he wanted to end the Cold War.
Israeli evacuee here. Did you talk to Israeli evacuees on your trip? No.
But he said, I want one promise from you before I do this. He said this to James Baker, to President Bush at that time, and to John Major.
The files have been leaked on the. I need to re-in. I don't trust any of my research now. Since I started Vyvanse, I've looked into everything so much more deeply, but I've never been contradicted on it. He's about to quote when Secretary of State James Baker said that we're not 1 inch eastward, quote. This quote was in reference to, I believe it was in reference to, if the reunification of Germany happens, NATO's army would not move 1 inch eastward into East Germany. And Gorbachev himself came out later and said there were no promises that NATO would never expand to the east. However, if you think about when this conversation happened, that makes sense because there was no place east for there was no place east for NATO to go because the Warsaw Pact was still there. The Soviet Union and the Warsaw Pact, it's not like anything could join NATO. It didn't even make sense to think at the time that they were talking about about NATO expanding east because the Soviet Union hadn't collapsed. It doesn't even make any sense. Sorry, maybe he's not even going to say that. Sorry, actually, maybe he's about to say something completely different, and he's not going to say the 1 inch eastward quote from Baker.
He said, I want one promise, which is after I give you Germany, you cannot move NATO you can.
Oh, wow, crazy.
Not move NATO to the east and all the other countries we're going to march out of.
All the other countries we're going to march out of? Warning! I don't know that much history around 91. I've only read discrete specific events, so I have to trust other people's context, and the more that I read, the more I realize I shouldn't trust anybody because I'm the best historian ever, okay? My understanding is that nobody knew the Soviet Union was going to collapse. Is that not true? Is he saying that people knew ahead of time? Oh, well, the Soviet Union is probably going to collapse, so when your armies come in and shit, we're not going to...
You cannot move NATO to the east and all the other countries we're going to march out of. James Baker, who was the Secretary of State, famously told Gorbachev, we will not move NATO 1 inch to the east. And in 1997, Zbigniew Brzezinski, who was the first of the neocons, says, okay, here's a plan. He publishes a plan for moving NATO into every former Soviet territory. And people go crazy at that time. George Kennan, who is the most important diplomat in modern American history, he was the architect of the containment policy during the Cold War. He said, if you do that, you're going to turn Russia into an enemy. You should be treating it as a friend. You should be welcoming it to the global community and using it as a bulwark against Chinese expansion. Kissinger said that. George Kennan said that. George Kennan said, if you do this, you're going to force Russia into a violent response. Bill Pierce.
But that didn't happen. If he said that, he was wrong. There were like 4 or 5 big rounds of countries joining NATO, and it didn't force Russia into a violent response. This didn't happen, or at least I'm not aware of it happening anywhere.
Who was then the Secretary of Defense, threatened to resign to Clinton. He said, if you do this, I'm going to resign. It's so destabilizing to move NATO to the east. Bill Perry, who was then, and Bill Pierce is now the head of the CIA. Bill Perry, who was then the U.S. ambassador to the Soviet Union, said the same thing. He said, you're forcing Russia into ultimately a violent response if you keep moving NATO to the east. What do? We did it anyway. Why do we want to move NATO to the east? There's all kinds of geopolitical reasons that the neocons want to drive because they like conflict. But, the big reason is that...
Because they like conflict? Where is all the conflict with these NATO countries? My history is not the best here. Somebody tell me, from 1991 to 2014, which NATO countries have been attacked? And from 2014, from 2020 to 2024 till today, which NATO countries have been attacked? Where is all the conflict in the NATO countries? Which ones? Name them in chat. Which NATO countries have been attacked since 91?
When a new country signs onto NATO, it has to then...
Do you know who has been attacked since 91? By Russia, Moldova, Georgia, Ukraine. You know what other countries are getting attacked by other people? There was a conflict in Azerbaijan, the shit that happens in the Middle East, Iran and Saudi Arabia, all the shit going on in Syria, the collapse of Yugoslavia. Where is all of the chaos that's been caused by countries joining NATO?
When a new country signs onto NATO, it has to then change all of its weapons specifications, weapons purchases to NATO specifications, which means it has to buy all of its weapons from Lockheed, Boeing.
Bro, the U.S. sells the best weapons anyway. What do you mean? What? Oh, no. Oh, we have to buy F-35s now? Oh, no. We have to buy U.S. weapon systems, and we can't buy disintegrating third-generation Russian fighter planes. Oh, no. Oh, no. We have to fly planes that have the radar cross-section of fucking Donald Trump's head now, instead of flying these horrible, inefficient piece of shit World War II relic. Oh, we're so fucked now. We have to buy. Oh, God. What is this argument? Also, do you have to buy any of this shit at all? Or could you just say, fuck it, if I get attacked, I know the U.S. is going to protect me anyway? What? These countries weren't even hitting their fucking financial obligations to their army under NATO until fucking Donald Trump threatened to pull out anyway.
General Dynamics and Northrop Grumman and the U.S. military contractors that are all owned by BlackRock. So there's this...
Also, it's not true. Poland is literally buying Korean tanks. Oh, maybe it's not even true.
It's an economic imperative to drive NATO into all of these new countries. And, Putin said again and again, if you go in there, we are going to have to fight back. What do we do?
Fight back? We fight. I'm sorry. He must have been talking about a country. Fight back? That a NATO country was attacking Russia and he needed to fight back? Fight back?
And Northrop Grumman and the U.S. military contractors that are all owned by BlackRock. So there's this economic imperative to drive NATO into all of these new countries. And, Putin said...
Economic imperative to drive... Do you really think it's meaningfully impacting the U.S. economy to sell weapons? I'm curious, of all the things that we export, what are the largest U.S. exports? Maybe. Let's check. Okay. I want to look at let's look at the big blocks. I wonder if it breaks it down by defense or whatever. U.S. exports. My hunch, my feelings that our largest exports are probably tech. However, it could be that some of the tech is integrated into some of the military stuff, so maybe it's not fair. Fuck this. What is the block? What's the block thing? Do you know what I'm talking about? The block thing. Who knows what I'm talking about? What's the name of that graph?
The largest U.S. export is your mom, bro.
That doesn't even make sense because my mom's from Cuba. So that would be the largest U.S. import. Dipshit. What do you make of NATO's refusal to allow Russia to join when they asked to years ago? I'm not aware of that ever being the case. I don't think Russia has ever been refused access to NATO. What I've heard said, and this sounds so simplistic, I'm sure there's a bigger story. What I've heard said is that is that Russia was invited to join NATO, but Russia wanted to like be expedited in as a member, or they wanted to skip something, and NATO said you have to do the normal process. So Russia's like, well, fuck that. That sounds childish. That sounds like, but I'm sure there's more to that. Scroll down. Oh, tree map. Is that what it's called? Okay. Monolithic Integrated Circuits Digital. Jesus Christ. What the f***? This is usually way more simply done. Fuck, this won't be broken down by... Let's just do this. U.S. total value exports. $3 trillion for 2022. U.S. total value military sales? The direct military sales by U.S. companies rose to $157.5 billion. By U.S. companies rose to $157 billion in fiscal 2023 from $153 billion, while sales arranged through the U.S. government. Does this include the United States as a customer, or are these just like foreign sales? So arranged through. Even if we include, I mean, even if we say that this is all just to other people, which it might be. So this would be, I'm trying to think, 3 trillion, 300 billion would be 10%. This is 5% of our, oh, this includes the U.S. as a customer? Even if it did include the U.S. as a customer, this would be 5% of our total exports, which is like a decent chunk of change. But would this be enough to drive like worldwide U.S. foreign policy? I feel like people think that like the United States' like military industrial complex and exports make up some massive chunk of our exports or some massive chunk of our economy. It really doesn't. It really doesn't that much. Scroll down on the first website. Which is the first one? This one? Further. Do it like this, but this wouldn't break it down by... I don't know what you want me. I don't know what you want me to be scrolling down into. Okay. Someday we'll do deep dives on this. So I have like all the numbers and everything. But I don't think there's a reason why these guys never give numbers, right? Like I'm trying to find the data even here because it's not like they give any. But yeah, I don't. This idea that there's that the military industrial complex is some massive driver of like U.S. exports, some massive driver of the U.S. economy. I don't think this is true. And I don't think there's ever been strong evidence presented as much or as such.
So there's this economic imperative to drive NATO into all of these new countries. And, you know, Putin said again and again, if you go in there, we are going to have to fight back. What do we do? In 2014, the CIA goes in with USAID.
Oh, and he's going to do the same. Dude, it's it's all the Russian talking points. He's about to say that Euromaidan was caused by, it was an orange or colored revolution or whatever that was instigated by the United States in order to drive out the Russian leader, Yanukovych, and he's going to say that we have strong evidence of this because of the Newland fucking phone call that got leaked. It's like the same 3 talking points every single time. How does the conversation never advance?
And overthrows the elected government of Ukraine.
No.
And we put in a Western government.
We installed, really? We installed that government? Are talking points not true? No, none of these talking points are true. No, there's no evidence ever. There's been zero evidence presented that the United States had anything to do with Euromaidan. All the conflict was there. It's all out in the open. Nobody liked that Yanukovych was going to join the customs union of Russia. They all wanted to join. They wanted access to the European Union markets for obvious reasons. And everybody's pissed off about this. Like all of this is out in the open. Everybody's mad about it. There were protests for so long over this. The idea that the U.S. instigated this is fantasy.
Secretary of State Victoria Nuland, who's
and the Nuland call. It's every. Can I? How long have I been streaming for? I want to go. Okay, in like 20 minutes, I'm gonna go take a break, go to the other room, so that I can flip myself over, just my mouth. Okay, I just want to eat fat loads. It's the stupidest talking points over and over and over again. Why am I watching this?
Neocon at that time. we now have a tape of her.
Yeah, we now. Yeah, like, wait, like you discovered this yesterday? Like, people haven't been talking about the same stupid phone call that proves nothing. All the phone call says is that we would prefer one leader over another. That doesn't mean that we're installing leaders. This is such an unhinged take. Go listen to the phone call. We've listened to this like 20 million times. Ryan Dawson tried to bring this up before. The phone call does not prove that we installed a leader. It just says we'd prefer to work with one over the other. A preference for somebody's not the same thing as installing a whole new government and causing a fucking violent coup revolution.
Talking to the U.S. ambassador a month before the coup, hand-picking the cabinet.
Hand-picking? Or saying they'd prefer to deal with one over the other. That's hand-picking?
That would replace the neutral government with a pro-Western.
Neutral government? That was a neutral government?
And so then we go in there, we overthrow their elected government, we put in a government that's sympathetic to us. Putin immediately says, oh, well, now they're going to put the U.S. fleet in Vladivostok, which was Russia's for 340 years, their only southern port. That's where the Soviet fleet is, which is in Crimea. And he says, do you
think he's literally being paid by Russia or just retarded? I don't know at this point. I don't know anymore. The thing is that the marching orders are so consistent from person to person to person. The Hinkles, the RFKs, all these like conservative weirdos online that also make appearances on RT and shit. I don't know if they get paid through some Russian. I feel like if there was a huge payment scheme that somebody would have uncovered it by now, or that somebody would have leaked it by now, or something. I feel like that probably would have come out. It could just be this is just like the dipshit constellation of conservative beliefs or anti-establishment beliefs that everybody buys into for some reason. That's a satisfactory explanation. But I don't know.
That if you do this, we're going to go into Crimea. He goes in Crimea. He doesn't fire a shot because the people of Crimea have always wanted to be back with Russia.
They literally invaded the fucking country. What are you talking? Like, I think under cover of night, they were like airdropping people and shit. And yeah, the country was taken over like almost instantly, or the peninsula. But
he doesn't fire a shot because the people of Crimea have always wanted to be back with Russia.
It's every shitty talking point. Is he going to bring up that they held a referendum, a totally 100% fair referendum, where they all voted to stay in Russia?
They voted 90-10 to go back to Russia. And
I don't want to watch this. How much longer is this segment? Get me the out of here. It's the same stupid talking points. That Russia captured a piece of land. They presented two bullshit options in a poll, basically saying like, do you want to join Russia? Or through a longer thing, do you want to join Russia? It was basically the same fucking option in both things that they could have voted for here. After they'd already been taken over by Russia. Give me.
And then he says,
not to mention, by the way, that none of this even matters. None of this is even relevant. If New Mexico took a vote and they said they wanted to join Mexico, it doesn't matter, bro. You're a state. We're a sovereign territory. The United States of America is one sovereign state. You can't just fucking leave. And you sure as fuck can't be taken over by another fucking country. I'm a bit behind. Just remember, every time people bring up the no NATO expansion promise, remember that Russia promised to respect Ukraine's borders and the Russian-Ukrainian Friendship Treaty. Is that a different one than the 94 Budapest memorandums?
And then there's a revolution. There's, this new government comes in and basically illegalizes the Russian language.
Makes it illegal to speak Russian. That wasn't true. But also, they do ban certain media companies, I think that they say are owned by certain Russian oligarchs. That did happen, I believe.
There used to be two languages in Ukraine, Russian and Ukrainian. Now they say, no, the official language is now Ukrainian. You can't speak Russian. We don't teach it in the schools, etc. And they begin enacting these other oppressive mandates against the Russian, ethnic Russians in Donbass. And
what are the other talking points? In 2014, we need to bring up that 20,000 civilians have been ruthlessly killed in the civil war. Something about Azov will come up.
So there are protests in Donbass.
Donbass is just... Oh, also, any Russian troops, please, God, any Russian troops that went into the Donbass were just going in to protect ethnic Russians. That's the only reason they went down there. They just wanted to protect ethnic Russians from the neo-Nazi Azov battalion. That's all they were doing.
Protests turn violent, and the question is, why do they turn violent? The assumption is there's right-wingers in
Azov. Say it.
In the new government that we put in.
Yep, Azov. Say it.
Who killed 14,000
civilians,
people from Donbass and Lugansk.
Yeah. And Russia sends in people to help them.
So
Russia has to just help them.
Putin says, look, I'm going to go in there.
To help them.
Donbass and Lugansk vote to join Russia, the Russian Federation. Putin says, I don't want you. You stay with Ukraine, but here's a proposal. And he gives what is called the Minsk Accords, which Germany approves of, France approves of, and UK.
Yeah, everybody approves of these to stop the fucking fighting because people are dying. Yes, Minsk 1 and 2. Minsk 1 is broken almost immediately, and 2 never even really goes into effect. Yes. You said Donbass and Luhansk? I don't even know the difference. Fuck, now you fucked me up. Hold on. There's 2 cities. I want to say Luhansk and Donetsk. And then the Donbass refers to I don't know if the Donbass is a district or a geographical region, but it contains those 2 cities. I should look this up so I have 100%. It's Luhansk, and Donetsk, I believe, are 2 cities. And then the Donbass, I think, is just the... I don't know if this refers to just a geographical area or if it encompasses both of these along territorial district lines. It's a historical, cultural, and economic region. Part of the Donbass are occupied. Donetsk and Luhansk regions. Oh, these are also regions. Okay, maybe it's just these 2 regions combined. But also, I like how he says, by the way, that Russia said, no, you stay with Ukraine. Pretty sure what Russia has said from 2014 onwards is they should be independent territories or autonomous regions, but okay.
Approve of. And the Minsk Accords say, we're going to keep NATO out of Ukraine. We're going to give Donbass and Lugansk autonomy, just like Montreal, Quebec, part of Canada.
Oh my God, kill the worms in your brain. We're going to make them like Montreal? Did he really just say that?
We're going to give Donbass and Lugansk autonomy, just like Montreal, Quebec, part of Canada. You'll still be part of Ukraine, but you'll be able to keep the Russian language.
Since when is Quebec an autonomous region that's not a province of fucking Canada? At Destiny, so you never believe it is moral/justified for an area of a state to secede from said state and either join another or become independent. Sounds wholly anti-American and pretty tyrannical. Are you the retarded Zionist dipshit from yesterday? No, you fucking retard. You can have a revolution and you can rebel against a state, but be honest about what it is. If you want to say that these regions rebelled or whatever, I would still disagree, obviously, because they're supported by Russia. But he's just saying, that would be, imagine saying oh, well, the American Revolution, well, all the colonists wanted to do was just exist under the English crown in the same way that, I don't even know what another analogy would be for this, but no, it was a revolution. It was a revolution to rebel against the control of the English and to form an independent territory, right? He's right about Quebec. They have pretty far-reaching autonomy. You are wrong about that, Destiny. Quebec, so people in Quebec don't pay any federal taxes to the Canadian government. They don't have any of the federal laws that are passed by the Canadian government don't apply to people in Quebec. They don't have representation in the Canadian Parliament. They can't be called upon for, I don't know, Canada has a military. They don't have why don't you enlighten us, Destiny? Tell us how Ukraine can win this war without plunging the world into World War III. I don't know if Ukraine can win the war or not, but if you want to blame somebody for starting World War III, blame Russia for invading Ukraine. If you want to know the easiest path to World War III, the easiest path is the policy of appeasement, where you tell countries, if you really want to invade people and take them over, fuck it, we won't do anything to stop you. Today it's Ukraine, tomorrow it's whatever other non-aligned country that they can take over. And then maybe the next time, maybe it is a NATO country, because fuck it, we don't want to start World War III. Retard talking points. Actual subhuman talking points.
And then he also asked to denazify some of the,
the denazification.
The new government that we had put in to remove some of the extreme right-wingers. And all of these nations approve of this agreement. And Zelensky runs in 2019, and he's an actor and a comedian, no political involvement at all. He runs on one issue. I'm going to sign the Minsk Accords, and there's going to be peace with Russia. He wins 70% of the vote.
How much you want to bet he's going to blame Ukraine for unilaterally violating Minsk? He's going to say it was just Ukraine's fault. You think he'll do it?
So, overwhelmingly, the people wanted peace. They wanted that agreement. Suddenly, he gets in office and he pivots, and he says, I'm not going to sign it. Why did that happen? There's two assumptions. We don't know, but there's two assumptions. One, he was threatened.
The United States told him not to so that we could continue to have conflict and war with Russia?
By right-wingers within his own government. Two, the United States, Victoria Nuland told him he couldn't sign it. So
Evidence works cited, crack pipe. Works cited, episode 24 of Breaking Bad, where he learns how to shoot up fucking heroin directly into the abscessed brain, into his abscessed cranium, the part where his brain used to be. There is a reservoir of crack cocaine that slowly seeps into his mind that causes hallucinations.
Putin then sends in 40,000 troops.
To protect. Please say to protect. Please stress. Please, please, please stress. The only reason Putin sent those troops in was to protect the innocent civilians that were being killed, slaughtered by the neo-Nazi Azov Ukrainian forces. Please stress that.
Victoria Nuland told him he couldn't sign it. So Putin then sends in 40,000 troops. The West says, he's trying to conquer Europe. He's like Hitler marching on Europe. He sends 40,000 troops. He clearly does not even want to conquer Ukraine. Ukraine has 44 million people in it. He can't conquer with 40,000 troops.
Yeah.
What Putin says, I just want you back at the negotiating table. Zelensky then says, ask the United States to help him negotiate. We won't help him. He asked President Xi of China to help him. Xi won't help him. He goes to Naftali Bennett, the Prime Minister of Israel.
Why would he say that? Sending in 40,000 troops to conquer a country of 33 million people. Does he think you need 33 million? How many troops do you think you need? What was that comparison to like civilian population to military? How many troops were involved in the Iraq War? USA, Iraq War, Wikipedia. It should just strength. Was it like 100,000? Is my guess. I actually have no idea. 2003. What if it was? Maybe it was way more. Oh, 500,000 total. What was the population of Iraq? I'm gonna guess 30 million. Middle East country. I have no idea. Iraq population. I have no idea. In 2003. Okay, it's like 27 million. We only sent in 500,000 troops. I wonder if these were all at once or these were rotated in. Well, no, because this war proper only lasted like a couple months, right? How could we conquer a country of 27 million people with only 500,000 troops? Were we even trying to win? Hello, honey boo boo. She's not coming back. You have to get along with me now. Stop being a simp fuck. Oh, God. He loves his mom so much.
Well, and Israel says, yeah, we'll help you. And to Erdogan and Turkey. So Erdogan, Naftali Bennett referee discussions between Zelensky and Putin. And they come to an agreement, which is like Minsk Accords too. It's the same agreement. And they sign the agreement. And the main thing Putin wants is we agree never to put NATO into Ukraine. And they agreed to that. We signed that agreement, and Joe Biden...
Okay, my recollection of the Minsk Accords had nothing to do with fucking NATO. The Minsk Accords, I think, were just trying to figure out like what's a way to solve the to solve the ongoing conflict. What? This is like the most U.S.-brained take on like this conflict. Like everybody in the region, all Ukrainians and all Russians are just obsessed with fucking NATO. The text of the protocol consists of 12 points to ensure an immediate bilateral ceasefire, to ensure the monitoring and verification of the ceasefire, decentralization of power, including through the adoption of Ukrainian law, to ensure the permanent monitoring of Ukrainian-Russian border and verification by the OSCE, immediate release of all hostages and illegally detained persons, a law preventing the prosecution and punishment of people in connection to the events that have taken place, to continue the inclusive national dialogue, take measures. Was NATO even mentioned in any of these? Minsk 2. I don't know if NATO was even mentioned in these. Why does he think these accords were about not joining NATO? I know why. It's because that's his whole fucking narrative over this. It's the same. Like his entire goal His whole framing of this entire conflict is just through NATO.
Put NATO into Ukraine, and they agreed to that. We signed that agreement, and Joe Biden sends Boris Johnson.
That was the Minsk Accords. The Minsk Accords was please don't let them join NATO.
Sign the agreement and the discussions between Zelensky and Putin, and they come to an agreement, which is like Minsk Accords too. It's the same agreement, and they sign the agreement. And the main thing Putin wants is we agree never to put NATO into Ukraine.
These talking points probably come from John Mearsheimer. He basically says the exact same thing. Aha, the king retard. Mearsheimer is to international relations what fucking Finkelstein is to Israeli-Palestinian history.
And they agreed to that. We signed that agreement, and Joe Biden sends Boris Johnson over from the UK, who's now the former prime minister, to tell Zelensky he's got to tear up the agreement because we wanted the war. And Zelensky tears it up. And, since then, there's probably been
Wait, what?
who's now the former prime minister, to tell Zelensky he's got to tear up the agreement because we wanted the war. And Zelensky tears it up.
Where is this? I'm sorry. Boris, Zelensky, Minsk agreements, Minsk Accords. This is about a peace deal. Where is... Boris Johnson told him to tear up. He's not talking about Minsk now? Oh, is he just talking about the later peace agreements?
Biden sends Boris Johnson. It's like Minsk Accords too. It's the same agreement. And
oh wait, he's saying that the whatever peace agreement now is like Minsk too.
Yeah, we'll help you. And to Erdogan in Turkey. So Erdogan, Naftali Bennett referee discussions between Zelensky and Putin, and they come to an agreement, which is like Minsk Accords too. It's the same agreement. And they sign the agreement, and the main thing Putin wants is we agree never to put NATO into Ukraine, and they agreed to that. We signed that agreement, and Joe Biden sends Boris Johnson over from the...
Hi, quick. I got so many videos to go over today. What do you need?
It's a Boris Johnson thing.
Yeah?
I just wanted to, if you want a short explanation about that. If not, then I, will disappear.
No, it's okay. I have a better understanding. I thought he was talking about it in reference to Minsk too, but this is when Boris went over to visit Ukraine when they were working on the peace agreements.
They always go back to this. Like all conservatives basically go back to this. They talk about, and leftoids as well. They talk about the fact that Boris Johnson arrived after there was negotiations on the table. And he allegedly, no proof anywhere of that he was the one who made the choice to, instead of Zelensky, to not make any negotiations with Russia. Yeah. They call this, a guy actually blamed Boris Johnson in the death of my father. Such a meme. But the point is that basically it's completely false. Negotiations were, this happened week after we find out about Bucha.
Oh, okay.
So when we discovered what happened there, we essentially all came to the conclusion that no negotiations are possible. And also the terms that Russians provided already were considered ridiculous. For example, an Israeli dude came, Naftali Bennett, I think is his name. Yeah. He came and he also said it's impossible to negotiate before Boris Johnson arrived. Because he was like, what can you negotiate with? It's a ridiculous terms that Putin provided, nobody will take it seriously. But any talks of negotiations just fully dropped after we discovered what happened in Bucha. And after that, Boris Johnson had fuck all to do with it.
Sure.
So, okay. But they repeat this meme all the time. Yeah. Bye-bye.
Have fun. Be careful.
The UK, who's now the former prime minister, to tell Zelensky he's got to tear up the agreement because we wanted the war. And Zelensky tears it up. And, since then, there's probably been 600,000 Ukrainian kids who have died over there.
The Russian talking points. Is this Tim Pool? Wait, what the fuck? Who is this? Oh, yeah, it's always the poor Ukrainians dying. It's all about the poor Ukrainians dying. Oh, it's always this talking point, too.
Totally unnecessarily. My son went over there and fought with the Foreign Legion.
Destiny, make an argument challenge. Against which thing? What? I'm pretty sure I've argued against all these in the past. I'm giving small ones, but what? I can't argue against things that there's not even evidence for these things. There is no evidence that Ukraine is being led around by Boris Johnson. Just look at the endemic support in Ukraine for the war. Like, look at the percentages of people that support the ongoing war right now, that still support Zelensky. The idea that an installed leader is enjoying such widespread support, and the current military conflict is still enjoying pretty widespread support, doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make sense to say that's an installed leader. There's no evidence that Nuland ever installed anything ever, or that the U.S. caused the revolution in 2014 ever. There's no evidence for that. I can't argue against it because the only evidence given ever is a leaked phone call from an ambassador saying that we'd prefer to work with one leader or the other. That's it. What else? How do I argue against Russia sending in 40,000 troops to ensure peace? You can't invade another country like that. You're not allowed to do that because another country's having problems. You send 40,000 troops to invade? That's insane. There's not an argument to support that. There's a wild assertion that you have the right to do that. The elections in Crimea were universally condemned as not being free and fair elections. Nobody has thought that. None of the international community supported those elections. It's where the little green men meme fucking comes from. Even the 40,000 troops that were sent into the Donbass, I'm pretty sure Russia initially denied those, that there were even troops there. Remember, because there's that huge deal about that plane being shot down. Ukrainian plane shot down. What year was this? Was it this one? I thought this was a few years ago. Was it 2020? And Russia's like, oh, we don't have anybody there. And even though they're operating weapon systems that almost for sure either came from Russia or required Russians to operate them. Was it that? I thought it was earlier. Yeah, MH14. Wasn't this like way back? Not this one. MH14 shot down. What is this? Hello? Okay, yeah. MH17, not 14. My brain says this was like 10 years ago, but I might be way wrong on that. Was it this? Oh, 2014. This is a passenger airliner that got shot down and everybody got obliviated. The weapon system that was being operated here was a Russian weapon system. Like, did the U.S. have the right to invade in Kosovo? Who determines when you can invade? Usually, it can be the UN Security Council. It could be, I don't know. What approval did the United States get to invade Kosovo? Let me check. Hold on, because I know some of these are some of these. There's like abstaining votes in the UN Security Council, and some of these it was supported. I'm not sure. I'd have to go and look up the. You misspoke invade with intervention there. Oh, that's true too. The United States did not go into these areas looking to take territory as well. That's also correct. The United Nations Security Council, the UNSC did not vote on NATO intervention in Kosovo. So I guess in terms of international law, you could say that was illegal, but it's still not the same. It's not even remotely on the same level as going into Ukraine to peel territory away from the country. RFK thinks COVID couldn't hurt Jews and the Chinese. Is that true?
And he fought. He was a machine gunner in a special forces unit during the Kharkiv offensive. No, he and Connor and I argued every night at dinner in the Kharkiv Legion. And he fought. He was a machine gunner in a special forces unit during the Kharkiv offensive. No, he and Connor and I argued every night at dinner about Ukraine. And when the war started, he had supported U.S. aid, and he felt like he shouldn't be one of these people who were advocating a war and then sitting on the sidelines and not willing to fight it. So he didn't tell us where he was going. He just disappeared, and he went over there and he joined the Foreign Legion, and he worked for the first 3 or 4 weeks as a drone operator.
Is the only thing that's different that Russia takes territory, or is there more? It's the fact that Russia is invading a country to support their own interests, in contravention of the other country's interests against the will of the people in that country, for seemingly the only benefit being to that of Russia. That's it. I'm not sure if the United States has actually ever done any military conquest like that. I think we bought most of our shit. But I said that with low levels of conviction. But I'm pretty sure we bought most of our land or whatever. At least not in the last 100 years, maybe. Spanish-American War. I don't remember what territorial transfer looked like after like wars in like the 1800s or whatever. I'm not sure. I don't know.
Which was, as it turns out, that's the most dangerous job because the Russians can tell when you turn on the drone. And it's mainly an artillery war. So they would then, hit the drone operator with artillery. And they had to turn it on while they were in the back of a pickup truck and then keep the truck moving. And then he became a machine gunner for that unit. But, the people that he was in that unit with are almost all gone.
Man, is he still going over there?
No, he came back here to finish law school, and he's now, thank God, practicing law.
Right on.
Why does Hassan use the same talking point he's got? It's just like the fuck America anti-establishment talking points. It's like all the same. I think these guys get like a pamphlet or they get a bunch of emails or whatever that gives them like, here's your marching orders for today. And it's always the same tired, boring anti-American talking points, anti-US intervention. They all end up somehow being pro-Russia or at the very least like indifferent to Russia. They all end up shitting on anything that's relating to, anything positive to the US is all shit on. Yeah, anything against the US is all championed. Atrocities on the other side are either denied or downplayed. Anything on the U.S. side is either exaggerated or invented. Like it's the same shit over. It's always like this every single time.
You had mentioned something else, switching gears a little bit, how we would instigate China into invading Taiwan. How do you think?
What's the point of these podcasts? God, it's so boring. I couldn't do it. How do you guys listen to this shit? We just listen to some guy jerking off like, oh, let me tell you the same story that you've heard 50 million times. The media consumption for the average human being is so fucking pathetic. I would kill myself if I listened to this shit every day. Why did I? I used to listen to conservative talk radio a lot, but they were funny. I feel like they were funny. Yeah, no, I guess it was. Yeah, listening to Rush Limbaugh and stuff shit on Democrats shit was funny. It was funny, yeah.
Think we would instigate China into invading Taiwan?
If we keep trying to militarize the South China Sea,
it's South China Sea. That's all the United States' fault. Do you think in the next? We'll listen to this for 5 more minutes. Do you think in any of this is any of the blame whatsoever going to be placed on China at all? Any of it, or is all of it going to be the fault of the United States?
they're going to respond by militarizing it themselves. And, it's the same thing we did with Russia. If you treat somebody like an enemy and you say, we want a hot war, they got to start arming themselves. And, China would never wanted to put a lot of money into its military, and it never has. But now it's putting huge amounts of money, and it's...
The whole Chinese military is literally just there because of the United States. The U.S. is the whole reason why did the U.S. even feel threatened if China never was even going to put money into the military? Wait, so you're saying, just real quick, you're saying China never wanted to put in any money at all towards its military. Well, then why did the U.S. even feel the need to militarize anything at all if China has no military? There should be no threat there then, right?
China's very smart. And it's a rich country. They have huge cash reserves, and they have...
I think one of the biggest misconceptions, and I think this is more generally thought of, warning, I'm entering areas that I have very low levels of conviction, very low levels of detailed knowledge of, okay? But I think there's been a Western myth of Chinese competency where decades and decades ago, we've been talking about forever how China is like secretly, they're ran so smoothly. These authoritarian regimes can respond to situations instantly with lightning precision, and the Belt Road Initiative and the scams that they do in these African countries, it's so smart and it's so efficient and it's so amazing. And I think as the years have drawn on, I think people have largely changed their perspectives on that, where it's like, China definitely has a lot of issues. They've got a lot of issues with satisfying the middle class. They've got a lot of issues with how they deal with other countries that don't go smoothly as they want. They do have issues rolling out some of these larger projects that end up not being as efficient as they want them to be. China's not really this like ultra efficient, economic soft power blitzkrieging force throughout the world that I guess in the West we thought they would be over and over again. But obviously this myth will still carry on in the minds of people that hate this country. But
money, and it's China's very smart, and it's a rich country. They have huge, huge cash reserves, and they have the ability to quickly build a military, and they're building a smart military. You know, they're now, because of these hypersonic weapons, a lot of the assumptions are, you know, our military, by the way, is in, I don't know how to politely.
He's not going to find a way to. He's not about to shit on our military at the same time. The only thing that apparently we're prioritizing, and the most evil country on the planet, the United States, that is like doing all these. He's not about to also make the claim that our military is useless or can't do anything, right? I don't know where he's going from here. Let's see.
Our military, by the way, is in. I don't know how to politely say it, but it's in the crapper.
Damn, the U.S. just can't do fucking anything, I guess. Holy shit. Jesus Christ. I guess we just suck at fucking literally every fucking thing possible is horrible of the military. The one thing that apparently we're so corrupt, you would think that this would be the one thing we do well if we're literally destroying the fucking world because of the military industrial complex, forcing people to buy our shit and taking over and doing all. You'd think at least our military was okay, but I guess not. Okay, Jesus.
You know, the jets don't work. The equipment is broken. The enlistments are down, I think, by 45%. And there's so much waste and so much corruption and the acquisitions part.
The jets don't work. That feel when our planes just fall out of the sky.
And the whole assumption, that upon which NATO is based.
These are almost word for word Mearsheimer talking points. Okay, I stopped listening to that retard years ago, thank God. So I haven't heard the new updated marching orders that he's been delivering to people.
Is that we can get 1 million troops across the Atlantic Ocean if there is an invasion from the east. But we can't do that anymore because these hypersonic weapons, which there's really no defense.
And he believes the Russian propaganda that they have true hypersonic missiles? He believes everything Russia says? But nothing the United States says? Russia probably does not have actual guided, what do you call them? True hypersonic weapons are weapons that can be maneuvered after the launch, like through, there's a name for these. True hypersonic doesn't just mean you're moving at a certain speed. It means that you can navigate them at a certain speed. Russia does not. I don't think Russia has these types of missiles. I think it was the Kislyak missiles that they claimed could do this, but some of these missiles have been intercepted and shot down. They do not have like hypersonic navigation. I don't think they do. He's referring to China's anti-ship hypersonic missiles. Okay, maybe. I don't. Okay.
Is that we can get 1 million troops across the Atlantic Ocean if there's...
Well, no, because he's saying across the Atlantic to stop an invasion from the east. Or is he saying China's going to invade from the east? China's going to invade Europe? I would assume he's talking about Russia. Who the fuck knows?
An invasion from the east. But we can't do that anymore because these hypersonic weapons...
Sorry, Kinzhal missiles, not Kislyak, my bad.
Which there's really no defense. There'd be so many troop carriers that would sink that the American people would not tolerate it anymore. Many troop-sonic weapons, which there's really no defense. There'd be so many troop carriers that would sink that the American people would not tolerate it anymore. A lot of the assumptions that current military strategy is based on are archaic.
And on top of that, I mean, the FBI director just came out and said that...
Archaic? Our F-35s are archaic? Our power projection is archaic? I mean, like, what the last war the United States was involved in, we steamrolled Iraq in like 1 month. They had like one of the largest ground army tank fleets in the world, as opposed to Russia that is falling over itself to invade a country that barely had a standing army, I think, like 10 years ago. Like, what? Your power projection is weak as in what? Where? How? How many bombing missions have we done where we can obliterate any target around the world at range? We don't have to send in ground troops sometimes. How many airfields have we... What is that? I'm getting baited. Never mind.
They have infiltrated our power grid and our water supply, our water treatment plants, and so... I've been on top of this for a long time and talking about it for years. It sounds to me like it's...
Somebody said, how does this look like Tim Pool? This guy looks exactly like Tim Pool. Do you mean thrust vectoring missiles? Maybe. It's close enough, okay?
Pretty much a light switch and the power goes out. And... we're barking up the wrong tree.
Yeah.
But Well, thank you. Let's get into your life story a little bit. Where did you grow up?
So I was one of 11 children.
Okay, thank you for whoever linked me this video. Okay, so now when people are like, you hate RFK for no reason, and instead of me saying, like, I feel like everything I've seen was, now I can point to even something more specific, and it's one day ago, so Jesus Christ. Destiny, there is a good argument that exists that the philosophy of the U.S. Army to outspend on certain systems that provide an overwhelming advantage instead of a large scale of equipment is severely outdated and only works when you aren't fighting peer adversaries. Okay, I don't know what that argument would be. When was the last time two peers fought in a huge, large-scale war? How do we even... What would it have been? Like World War II? When was the last time a war like that happened? Unless you consider Iraq and the United States as peers, but I don't know if you would. Who would even be our peers now? Would it just be Russia and China? I literally drop $100 to see you go through Laserpig's new video on how to kill a god. It goes really deep into Russia/Ukraine war and the propaganda around it. It's so good. Maybe, okay. At Destiny, I am not baiting. The USA is a massive, powerful, and important global player to the political and economic system that we live in. The problem with that is that Obama was not strong enough in Syria and Ukraine to show that if you fuck with us, we will do more pain. As the USA continues to be very protective/shy of using its power, it's showing that as long as you know how to fuck with you, we can fuck with you. Wait, what did you say earlier? I feel like you said something earlier that I disagree with. I think I agree with that statement, especially looking at Israel more. There must be arguments against this, but I don't know what those arguments are. One of the things that I said after I got on my last relationship that is that when you set boundaries for other people, not only does it make you feel better because you're setting a boundary that makes you comfortable, it also makes the other person feel better because they know how to operate. They know how they can interact with you and engage with you in a way that doesn't make you upset, that makes everybody happy. I think that having incredibly strict and powerful kinetic responses to red lines, even though it might seem harsh or cruel, I think it makes the world a more peaceful place because people know exactly what they can do and exactly what they can't do. I feel like Obama's red lines relating to Syria were probably some of the worst foreign policy decisions the United States has made, probably since the Iraq War. That if Obama truly felt that Assad was using chemical warfare against his people, then the response to that chemical warfare should have been the obliteration of some Syrian military targets. I think that the feeling should be in the world that if the United States tells you not to do something and you do it, that you could face annihilation. That should be the feeling. Like, okay, well, the U.S. said no, we're going to go for it. It's like, okay, that's fair, you can go for it, but like you will be wiped from the face of this earth. That once that disappears, once your deterrence disappears there, it gives people way more flexibility to do bad and stupid things. Like, the only thing that we should be worried about on this planet are non-state actors, because eliminating them is hard. You don't know what to hit. But state actors, actual countries, actual UN-recognized states should absolutely not be in a fuck around position, because the find out should come almost instantaneously after it happens. Yeah, that would be my feeling on it. So did Obama make a mistake with Crimea? What should he have done? For Crimea, I don't think Crimea is harder because Ukraine's not part of the not part of NATO. So no, I don't think that there was anything we could do about Crimea. And I think wisely, we didn't set any red lines relating to Ukraine. I'm not aware of any of that. But a red line was set for Syria. That's my understanding. And that red line was crossed, and the United States did nothing. I think that's really, really, really bad. I think that just sets a horrible precedent. Do you think that Biden's red line to Israel invading Rafah was bad foreign policy? If that truly was a red line that he set, then yeah, it would be. I don't remember what exactly was said on that. I have to go and check. But I don't know if it was an actual red line, or if it was like you just need to make sure the civilians are evacuated first or something. I know I've heard it said over and over again that there was a red line, but I had to see exactly what was stated or what was said there to have a feeling about that. But yeah, if he said Yeah, you can't set a red line and not follow through. If you set a red line and you don't follow through, it undermines you so much. Your word has to mean something, right? Because in absence of your word, it's military force. So your word has to carry a lot. Wouldn't pro-Russian propaganda say that Ukraine joining NATO was a red line Putin had to give a kinetic response to? Ukraine was never going to join NATO. Or if it was, it's like decades into the future. Like it's not like that was never immediately on the table. To be honest, I think it's bad that we waited all the way to Trump's term to start sending Ukraine things like javelins. Obama should have been much more forceful about Ukraine pushing back militarily. Yeah, I probably think so. I wasn't as politically wise at the time. If I had to guess, Obama's position was probably weakened by one of the most or maybe the most obstinate Senate in U.S. history, with McConnell, and the fact that the United States probably had almost no appetite for any kind of foreign affairs, because we're even today we're still mind fucked by Iraq. Yeah. People view you should be like I think the most loving kind of person in real life. This is true too. We know this personally. The people that you have the most respect for and the people that you want to be leaders can always be described as tough but fair. These are always the people that you want in charge of organizations, in charge of groups, in charge of countries, in charge of whatever. You always want people that are tough but fair, right? What that usually means is that if you fuck up, like, hellfire will rain down upon you. There will be consequences for your mistakes, and everybody else will face those consequences too. But as long as you're doing your best, you're trying to stay in line, they're fair, and they'll do what you deserve and what is expected by them. Tough but fair is important. Pushovers are always bad leaders. They're always bad leaders. They're fun for a little bit. It's fun to have a pushover as a leader because you can get away with a lot of bullshit, but everybody else can too, and eventually things start to fall apart. Can you explain why Mearsheimer is bad? I watched his Lex interview and thought he was very smart and cool. My understanding is that, and I'm going by what other foreign policy writers have written about him, so I'm relying on their interpretations. My understanding is that Mearsheimer was very much afraid of the fall of the Soviet Union. He thought that multipolarity in Europe was necessary to ensure some level of security and safety for the people in Europe. And I think that his major take was that with the fall of the Soviet Union, Europe would descend into constant armed conflict and chaos. It would just be a permanent hellfire war zone because you need multiple strong powers in order to balance out the continent. And that prediction just was entirely and completely not true. It wasn't predictive at all. It was completely wrong. And then his analysis of, more specifically, his analysis of everything relating to Russia, on some points, I believe, has been factually incorrect. He repeats that Baker one-line East bullshit. And then on other points, it's just feels like on current events, it just feels like Russian talking points, like just repeating like the propaganda lines. I just haven't heard Mearsheimer ever say anything. It's like, oh, that was pretty insightful or intelligent. It just seems like he's giving like basically Twitter takes. That's my impression of everything I've heard him say. Doesn't our public opinion on wars kind of force our leaders to be pushovers to get elected? If the U.S. joined a war nowadays, the far left and right would freak the fuck out. Yeah, but I mean, I think the United States, I think U.S. leaders, I think that Ben Shapiro said this, and I agree with him. I've said this for a long time. I'm sorry. He agrees with me, okay? That the United States needs to be more honest about our foreign policy. We need to be honest about what we're trying to achieve and what we're doing, rather than this weird, like, oh, we want to spread democracy to everybody, that bullshit. That's not true. Our goal is for the safety and security of the United States and U.S. interests and allies, here and abroad. That's what U.S. foreign policy should be about. And that's a good foreign policy, by the way. It's practically defensible insofar as like our economy and our relationships with other people go. And I think it's morally defensible. I would rather the U.S. be in charge of world affairs than fucking China or Russia. I think we conduct ourselves in a morally superior way, not perfectly, but in a morally superior way to those countries. Yeah. You're welcome for the vid link. I appreciate the fact checking and pushback on RFK Jr. I want to see an interview with you and him because he's experienced much pushback. I mean, if it's possible to get me on, sure, maybe, yeah. Oh, IME, in my experience. Why are Americans so anti-American? Why don't they have any pride in their country, being the superpower of the world? Do you think this is a result of too much freedom? Or I think it's the fact that we don't have any enemies to fight, so we just kind of like turn in on ourselves. And I just think that Americans in general have they've been bad at justifying like the things that they believe in their own existence. So we don't have any like arguments for why America is good or why any of the things we do are good or, yeah. Okay, well, we've got Howtown for how do they count COVID deaths? This was 4 days ago. And then we've got this big Brianna Wu debate where apparently she lost her mind.
I want to know, how do we know how...
Do you think foreign nations influencing social media has any tangible responsibility? I think it's a big deal that should be talked about, but the problem is nobody in the United States, like everybody is incentivized to ignore it for different reasons. The right, who are primed for this type of thing, right? It's so funny. The woke people on the left should be primed to fight racism, but when it starts appearing in minority communities, they have no tools. They can't actually do it. So the left can't fight racism in minority communities. The right are primed to be paranoid about foreign interference in our own country, and they're primed to be paranoid about giant conspiracies to control our social media, but they can't point that at Russia because of Russiagate and Trump. So they're completely and totally ill-equipped and unwilling to aim any criticism there. I feel like if you would ask the average far-right person, do you think that like, if you would ask them like, do you think that Israel like controls the United States or something? At least for younger people, the majority of them would say yes. And if you ask them, do you think that Russia has a significant influence in U.S. Domestic policy with foreign interference, illegal foreign interference? They'd say like, maybe it doesn't matter, or I don't know. I feel like that would be the average answer, something in there. Yeah. That talking point will always die in the First Amendment. The First Amendment has literally nothing to do with protecting a foreign power from misrepresenting itself in the United States for the purposes of spreading propaganda, ever.
I want to know, how do we know how many people died of COVID?
10,000. 100,000. 1 million people have died.
You see the U.S. was spreading COVID misinfo? Not COVID misinfo. I've only read headlines, but I think apparently under the Trump administration, the United States was in some countries trying to advertise to undercut the Chinese vaccine in favor of U.S. vaccines. I don't even know how true that is, but those are the headlines I've read, but I haven't done like deep diving into that. It is pretty ironic if that's true that vaccine misinfo, that was the conspiracy, was to spread misinfo. That would be pretty funny if that was true. But in the Philippines, yeah.
Around this time, 4 years ago, the U.S. was reporting about 1,000 COVID deaths every day. And I remember watching those.
Is that the source of many conspiracy theories? Foreign subversion? No. Foreign subversion, I don't believe that foreign subversion is creating conspiracy theories and trying to create crazy ideas in the American population. I think the point of foreign interference is to amplify disagreements and divides in a country. That's the point. So if I go to Russia and I want to destroy Russia, I'm not trying to look at like, I'm not trying to like create a whole new thing of like, oh, did you know that Russians are biologically modified Turks or something? I don't know, I'm not trying to make a whole new thing. I'm trying to find like, okay, well, what's like a really divisive issue for Russians? What's something that the population is split like 35-65 on? And it's like brands of liquor. Well, in that case, I'm going to find like the 35% side. I'm going to amplify the fuck out of the voices that are the most hateful towards Russia about like their opinions about this particular liquor that's only supported by 35% of the population, right? That might be like the way that you go in and you with things. Yeah.